Chuki, ahina makiublu.
He was a college graduate from Montana, but he wrestled a German soldier to the ground. He even stole 50 enemy horses right under their officers' noses. How did a scholar with plans for a quiet academic life find himself leading dangerous missions on the battlefields of Europe? This U.S. Army soldier became the last war chief of the Crow tribe, and here's how. How did Joe Medicine Crow's journey begin? It all started on October 27, 1913, on the Crow Indian Reservation near Lodge Grass, Montana. Times were tough for the Crow people. Their population was shrinking, their way of life was under threat, and many of their young were being sent to boarding schools designed to erase their cultural identity. But Joe's life took a different path, one deeply rooted in the traditions and history of his ancestors. So, who was Joe's family? His roots ran deep in Crow history. His grandfather, White Man Runs Him, was a scout for General George Custer during the Battle of Little Bighorn in 1876. This battle was a turning point for many Plains tribes, including the Crow. White Man Runs Him passed down his stories and experiences to young Joe, ensuring that the history of the Crow tribe would live on. What about the rest of his family? His other grandfather, Medicine Crow, was a legendary tribal chief, and his father was a close friend of Chief Plenty Coups, one of the most respected leaders in Crow history. Growing up with these connections, Joe was taught from a young age how to ride bareback, track game, face his fears, and survive in harsh conditions. But it wasn't just about learning survival skills. Joe also absorbed the values and stories that defined the Crow people, including stories of warriors who had fought against the tribe's ancient enemies, the Cheyenne and the Lakota. What did it take to become a leader in the Crow tribe? In Crow tradition, becoming a chief wasn't easy at all. It required completing 4 great war deeds: touching a living enemy, taking an enemy's weapon, stealing an enemy's horse, and leading a successful war party. These were more than just brave acts. They were the true test of who could lead the tribe in both peace and war. Even though Joe Medicine Crow grew up with strong warrior traditions, he didn't always plan to follow that path. At first, he aimed for a career in academics. Did you know he was the first person from his tribe to go to college? In 1939, Joe earned a master's degree in anthropology from the University of Southern California. His research on the interactions between Crow Indians and European settlers was highly respected. Joe even planned to continue his studies and get a PhD. But then World War II came along and changed everything. So, what made Joe join the Army? When the U.S. entered the war in 1941, Joe saw it as more than just a duty. It was a chance to live out the warrior traditions he grew up with. He enlisted and was assigned to the 103rd Infantry Division, also known as the Cactus Division. This is where his skills as a tracker and scout would really be tested on the battlefields of Europe. But what did Joe do as a scout? His job was crucial. He gathered intelligence, navigated tough terrain, and kept his fellow soldiers safe. But for Joe, it wasn't just about doing a job, it was about carrying on the warrior spirit of his ancestors. Before each battle, Joe would paint red stripes on his arms under his uniform and place a sacred eagle feather, painted yellow by a Sundance medicine man, in his helmet. Why did he do this? These rituals weren't just for show. They were Joe's way of bringing the strength and protection of his ancestors into every fight. One of Joe's most remarkable moments happened in France. How do you think he handled being face-to-face with an enemy? While scouting ahead of his unit, Joe suddenly came upon a German soldier. His instincts took over. He quickly disarmed the soldier, but instead of using the weapon, Joe decided to fight him like a warrior. They wrestled fiercely, and Joe soon had the upper hand. He could have ended the German's life, but when he heard the soldier cry out for his mother, Joe's heart softened. Instead of killing him, he took the German prisoner. With that act, Joe completed 2 of the 4 deeds needed to become a Crow war chief. How many people can say they earned the title of war chief in the middle of a world war? Joe Medicine Crow could, but his story didn't end there. As the 103rd Infantry Division moved through France and into Germany, Joe's bravery and leadership were tested again and again. So, what happened when they reached the Siegfried Line? A tough German defense. Joe's commanding officer needed someone brave to lead a dangerous mission, delivering explosives to the front lines. Why was this mission so important? These explosives were needed to break through the German defenses and help the Allies advance. And who did they pick for this task? Joe Medicine Crow. But how tough was the Siegfried Line? It was a massive defense, stretching 400 miles with bunkers, barbed wire, and landmines. Joe led a team of 7 men through this dangerous area while under enemy fire. The odds were against them, but Joe didn't give up. Did they succeed? Yes, they did. Joe delivered the explosives, helping the Allies break through. This mission checked off another task needed to become a war chief, leading a successful war party. But what about the final task to become a war chief? Stealing an enemy's horse. In the middle of World War II, that seemed impossible, right? Well, not for Joe. One night, while scouting ahead of his unit in Germany, Joe saw some German officers on horseback. They rode to a ranch, unsaddled their horses, and went inside. What did he do next? He saw his chance and asked his commanding officer if he could take care of those horses. The CO said yes, and Joe went on his mission. So, how did Joe do it? Before dawn, he sneaked into the corral where the horses were kept. He made a bridle out of rope, chose the best horse, and got on. But did he stop there? No way. With a loud crow battle cry, Joe led a stampede of 50 horses out of the corral, leaving the German officers without their mounts. With this bold move, Joe completed the final task to become a war chief. He had done what seemed impossible, earning the highest honor in Crow warrior tradition. When Joe came back home after the war, he shared his stories with the tribal elders. So, how did they react? They listened to his tales of bravery and realized he had done something truly special. They honored Joe Medicine Crow as the last war chief of the Crow tribe, a title that hadn't been given in generations. But did Joe's work end there? Nope. After the war, he became the Crow tribe's historian and anthropologist. What did he do in these roles? Joe spent his life preserving the history and culture of his people. He wrote books and taught future generations about the Crow's rich heritage. This work was especially important to him because he was the last living person with a direct oral history from someone who had been at the Battle of the Little Bighorn, a story passed down by his grandfather. Did people notice Joe's efforts? Definitely. In 2008, more than 60 years after the war, Joe was awarded the Bronze Star for his military service. He also received the French Legion of Honor for his role in liberating France. And in 2009, something very special happened. President Barack Obama gave Joe Medicine Crow the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian honor in the United States. During the ceremony, President Obama even spoke a few words in the Crow language to honor Joe's contributions to both his tribe and his country. Joe Medicine Crow lived a life that connected the ancient warrior traditions of the Crow with the modern world. He passed away in 2016 at the age of 102, leaving behind a legacy of courage, wisdom, and dedication. His story shows us the lasting strength of cultural heritage and the power of resilience. So, what do you think? Does Joe Medicine Crow's story inspire you as much as it does us? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories from history.